Alright, welcome to the video everybody. Today we're going to be going over a topic that is somewhat heated in the gun community as to whether you should load 30 rounds or whether you should load 28 or 29 rounds in your 30 round magazines. In this video I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate. I'm just going to be going over the different arguments between the two and allow you to make your own judgment when it comes to whether you want to load 30 rounds or whether you want to load lesser than that in your magazines. So when it comes to the debate between the two, a lot of people that load 30 rounds in their magazines like to say that people that load 28 or 29 are afraid of the spring tension inside the magazines, putting undue stress on the spring or putting undue stress on the feed lips of the magazine. That is simply not the case. I'm not sure where that topic came from. I'm not sure why people believe that that is the reason people like to load 28 or 29. That simply is not the reason. These magazines are designed to hold 30 rounds. The tension on the spring, or I should say the compression on the spring and the pressure on the feed lips is not an issue. That is how these magazines are designed. They're designed to hold 30. If they can't hold up to having 30 rounds in them, then they are poorly designed magazines. That's simply not the reason. The reason is when performing a tactical reload, you want to make sure that that magazine gets fully seated into the rifle, and 30 rounds in certain magazines and certain rifle configurations can make that difficult to do so. Now when it comes to my personal experience, I definitely go both ways when it comes to loading 30 or 28 or 29 into my magazines. Generally, I'm going to be loading 30 into my magazines, but there are instances where I would like to load 28 or 29. When speed is definitely the key, I do like to load 28 rounds into my magazines or even 29 rounds into my magazines versus loading 30, as it takes significantly less effort to load that magazine into the rifle on a closed bolt. So when you perform a tactical reload, if you are unfamiliar, let's say for the sake of this video, I have a round in the chamber and I have a partially spent magazine inside of the gun. So I have 10 rounds in the magazine, loaded chamber, bolt is closed. We're going to take the partially spent magazine out of the gun and take a full magazine, in this case 30 rounds, and we're going to insert it into the rifle. I'm going to give it a little bit of a push. You heard that click, locked into place. Or we can also load it in, give it a little bit of a tap. There we go, we are fully seated and locked in place. Let's go over the steel magazine as well. This magazine is from Palmetto State Armory, if that matters to you. This magazine also, I have no issue. I'm able to insert that in, no problem. Same thing, give it a little bit of a tap. And I'm able to get that fully seated inside of the rifle. Alright, so as you can see, I personally have no issues loading a fully topped off 30 round magazine into my rifle with a closed bolt, but that doesn't mean that everybody will have the same experience. It is very possible with different magazine manufacturers and different combinations of parts on your rifle that you are unable to get that magazine fully seated all the way into the gun. So for the sake of the video, what we're going to do is take another round. I'm going to top this magazine off to 31 rounds. I am able to squeeze 31 rounds into this magazine, so I'm going to demonstrate as to what would happen with some people when they load 30 and aren't able to get the magazine to seat all the way into the rifle. So with 31 rounds in this magazine, there is absolutely zero give on the spring inside of the magazine. Now with this being said, there is absolutely no way that I am going to get this magazine loaded into this rifle on a closed bolt. No matter how hard I push this, no matter how much I tap the bottom, there is no way that I'm going to get this magazine to seat all the way into this rifle. Now, the only way I can get this to work is if I load 31 rounds inside of this magazine. But this is definitely an issue that people have just loading 30 rounds into the magazine. And like I said, there are thousands of configurations, if not millions of configurations, that are possible between different parts and different magazines that go together where 30 rounds in your rifle may not work. So what this means is you need to do a little bit of testing on your own. If you find that loading a fully topped off 30 round magazine into your rifle with a closed bolt takes way too much effort, take a round out, take 2 rounds out until you're able to get that magazine seated into your rifle. So when it comes to the debate, I think people need to understand that there are millions of different combinations of magazines and rifles that can go together, and every person's specific situation is going to be different. Personally, I am able to load 30 rounds into my magazines and get them fully seated into the rifle without any issues, so that is how I run my magazines. But I also understand as to why people would like to load 28 or 29 rounds into their magazines versus 30. Now when it comes to the storage aspect and people liking to think that the compression on the spring is going to damage the magazine or loosen it up over time, or you're going to put undue stress on the feed lips of the magazine, that is simply not true. People have magazines stored with 30 rounds in them for years and they have no issues cycling these magazines round and round again. I just want to reiterate that that is not the argument for loading 28 or 29 rounds into these magazines. It is not for storage, it is not for damage to the magazine. It has to do with performing a tactical reload when you have 30 rounds loaded versus 28 or 29. So that's going to be it for the video, everybody. I hope you learned something from it and are able to come up with your own opinion on the topic and what works for your situation. And I hope that at some point we can put this argument to bed, as, well, I think we can all agree that it is a silly topic, but it definitely is something that needs to be addressed because there's a lot of people who don't quite understand the differences between the two of them. So, like I said, hope you learned something, hope you enjoyed the video, keep training, and thanks for watching.